and welcome to the Paletteful Packs YouTube channel. My name is Alice and today I have the March 2024 Paletteful Packs Premiere Pack here in front of me, so let's open it up and see what's inside. Ooh. Oh, this sticker is cute. It has a little kitty in it. Super cute sticker of a little kitty in a box that says Paletteful. I love it. Let's move this out of the way. Ooh, water mixable oils by Georgian. Let's open these up. Okay, so these are the Georgian water mixable oils, like I said, and you're going to get 6 colors. You're gonna get titanium white, cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson, French ultramarine, viridian hue, and yellow ochre. So these are water mixable oils, which means you can obviously mix them with water. So because of that, you don't have to use solvents or things like that that are really smelly to use oil paints, which is great because I have pets. I know a lot of you probably have pets, and it can be really hard to work with oil paints because of the fumes and stuff that the solvents give out. So they have a really high pigment load and a smooth texture with a nice viscosity that mirrors traditional oil colors, and you can use them for like impasto, thick techniques, or you can thin them down with water, and they take between 5 to 7 days to dry, and there's supposed to be no color shift when they dry. All right, then we have some supplies to use with our oils. We have some canvases. We have this 3-pack of Daler Rowney Simply Canvas panels. These are nice 5x7 stretched canvas panels. They are pre-primed, it looks like, and there's going to be 3 of them in this set. There's also a nice stretched canvas in here. This is a Daler Rowney canvas as well. It's going to be an 8x10 canvas with a 250 GSM weight, and it is 100% pure cotton and already primed. Next, we have 3 brushes. So we have 2 Robert Simmons brushes. We're going to have a 1/2 inch angle and a 2/0 round. So we've got a nice flat brush for putting in our larger areas, and then a really nice detailed brush as well. We're also going to get a nice bristle brush, a flat number 4 by the Artist Loft Sorrento. So bristle brushes are great for oil. And then finally, we have a nice little palette knife. This is a little plastic palette knife, and it's going to be perfect for mixing our colors because it's better to do that with a palette knife than with your brush, because that way paint doesn't get all stuck up in the bristles of the brush. Okay, so this is everything you're going to get with the March 2024 Paletteful Premiere Pack. We've got our large stretched 8x10 Daler Rowney canvas. We also have our 5x7 Simply Canvas panels. Then we're going to have our palette knife. We're gonna have the 6 water mixable oils, and then our 3 brushes, 2 Robert Simmons and 1 Artist Loft. So I'm super excited to play around with oil paints. I haven't played with them in a really long time. So let's go ahead and jump right on in.
Okay, so for this painting, I decided to work on the canvas panel just because it was a little easier, and I did originally intend on doing 2 paintings, but just because this was oil paints and I had to wait so long between the layers to dry, I decided to just do the 1 painting, but I did put a lot of time into it, so hopefully you guys like it. I went ahead and painted this flower that I have a photo of that I took in my Nana's garden, and I started out by using the paint to sketch everything out. I just watered it down and I used the fine detail brush to get my lines in, and then I started filling in the areas of green. I started with the background, starting with the darkest color down at the bottom, which I created by using a mixture of the green, the blue, and a little bit of the yellow ochre. And then as I move up, I decide to add in a little bit more of those yellows, both the yellow ochre and the cadmium yellow, just to brighten it up and change the color a little bit as we go further up into the top of the painting, and adding in a little bit of white to create that gradient and just blending everything out. I'm using the angled shader brush for this, going in with a really dark color that is going to be mostly that blue mixed with a little bit of that red to create a really dark purple and a tiny touch of that green. And then also going in to put in the lighter areas on top. I like to work from dark to light with oil paints. I find that it works a little bit better. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here, putting in the darks and then putting the lights in on the top. And then after that, I'm going in and building up shading and adding in details. I'm going to work on these details like bit by bit. So this is kind of like the medium detail stage. I'm not worried about like all the super finicky details. I'm just kind of getting in basic shading. So we let that dry overnight, well, actually like for 3 or 4 days, so that I could actually like rest my hand on the background while I was painting in the details of the flower without smudging the background. These paints do dry relatively quickly for oil paints because they are water-based oil paints. So I would say that I waited between 3 to 4 days for each layer to get tacky, and for it to be fully dry, I probably waited about 7 days. So adding in all of these beautiful shading details and getting the right purple shades was really difficult for me. So what I ended up doing was I created a visual purple by using a mix of purple, like kind of for the base. And then I would add on tones of bright blue and bright red to it instead of mixing a red purple or a blue purple. And by doing that, I was able to create a more visually vibrant color because your brain kind of mixes it for you instead of it being mixed with the paint. So it looks more vibrant instead of looking muddy, which was an issue that I was getting as I felt like things were just looking too gray. This was a very purple flower and I really wanted that purpleness to come through. So I really spent a lot of time on this portion, just kind of trying to get out the basics of all of the folds of the flowers. It was kind of difficult for me at this point. I was kind of struggling, but I just kept soldering on. It was so nice to blend with these though. I have to say the blending of everything, oil paints is pretty unmatched for blending if you want smooth blending. Oil paints is just going to be where it's at. So I let that dry for about 7 days, and then I went in with a glazing technique, which is where you use a watered down paint over the top of your previous paint to kind of tint the colors. You want your painting to be completely dry before you do this. So I used a little bit of that just to darken up some of the leaf shapes, and then I really went in and started kind of finalizing everything and putting in more opaque colors, filling in any areas where you could still see the canvas and starting to get more of that detailed shading in. So for the background, I'm using that bristle brush to get some really nice kind of like soft blending and brush strokes in there. And then I'm going in with this detail brush that was so helpful for all of these little details and marks and building up, adding in some little purples to where these buds are, adding in those darker colors and lighter colors to really like pop the shading and make everything look a little bit more realistic and like they're actual like leaves on a plant versus just the idea of leaves on a plant. I also use pure blue as my darkest dark. We don't have a black, and I tend to find that dark ultramarine blue layered on top or ultramarine blue mixed with a little alizarin crimson will make a really, really nice dark color for you to use, especially if you're working in a painting like this where there's a lot of greens and natural colors. As you can see, I am also working on a small table easel at this point. That's because oil paint is pretty shiny, and after a while it can be kind of hard to see what you're doing when it's flat on the table. So sometimes lifting it up and raising it a little bit like on an easel can really help diffuse that shine that you're getting from the top, your lights above you, and make it a little easier to see the colors and see what's going on. So that's why I've switched to an easel. Continuing to refine these little edges, adding in a little like ridges in the edges to make them look, like actual leaves versus just like little shapes and give that like realistic texture. One of the things that's important in paintings, and a lot of people overlook this, is edges. So where your edge meets your background or another piece of your painting, is it crisp or is it soft? They shouldn't necessarily all be crisp. They shouldn't necessarily all be soft. So you have to think about like how much you want that part of the painting to stand out from the rest of the painting. So if you look at my leaves, for example, some of them have edges where it's a little softer, and then some of the edges are a little bit more crisp, and that allows those crisp edges to kind of pull forward and those soft edges to kind of recede back. So it's really important to show that three-dimensionality of the image, to have some of those crisp lines and some of those soft lines. I'm using this small detailed brush and then that mixture of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, and then my little technique of adding in pure blues and pure reds to go in and really, really add all of these little details to this flower. I wanted to get all of the little folds and ridges in the petals and all of the little details so that it looked as realistic as it could in my style, because I'm not like a photorealist, so I'm not going for like that photorealistic look. I'm going for more of an impressionistic realistic look, and I really am happy with how this turned out. I think it came out really, really pretty, and I hope that you guys like it. I hope that it taught you some fun techniques with oils. Definitely start dark, work towards the lights, give yourself time for things to dry between layers. If things start getting muddy and you know everything's just blending together, stop, walk away from it, give it a few days to dry, and then come back to it. Your paints on your palette are going to stay wet, especially if you leave them covered and put them in the refrigerator. So oil paint has a very, very nice ability to just step away from the painting that you're working on. These paints are super easy to use. They're really, really pigmented. They have a really nice viscosity. They're not too like chunky. They're not too liquidy. They're a perfect viscosity. So these are beautiful, beautiful paints to work with. I think this is a great set for an introduction to oil paints. I can't wait to see what you guys have all created with this over the month. And I do apologize for this video being a little bit later. It's just kind of one of those things when you're working on something that takes a few days to dry between each layer, but I am really happy with this. And yeah, I hope that this video was helpful for you. Just finishing adding up all of these tiny, tiny little details and going in and just softening any final edges, making sure that everything looks good. And this is pretty much my final piece. So I hope you liked this video. Again, if you would like your own Paletteful Packs box, you are like, hey, I want my own subscription. I want my own water mixable oil paints. Click the link in the description box below and you can get one awesome box of wonderful art supplies from us every single month. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye.